Welcome, you're listening to Passages. I'm Drew, and even though he's on the other side of the world, I have Jason with me, and Tim is
Hey
here as
guys.
well. The three are together despite thousands of miles of distance between us. It's going to take more than
That's
an
right.
airplane
So
to separate us.
that's right.
Who
Drew
can
and I
imagine?
are on the opposite side of Leeds, and then Jason's on the other end of the world.
Yeah, who
Right.
could imagine that three guys who remember when internet and email and this technology first started, now 20 years later down the road can sit down and have conversation from different countries. It's pretty cool.
It is cool. And have we mentioned that you are in Peru?
Yeah,
Thousands of
from
miles
live
away, I
from
didn't think.
so we figured it out today. I was talking to one of the guys from West Virginia that's down here, and he wants to buy a Toyota Land Cruiser that he found down here. And he said the only way to get it back would be to drive it because it costs too much to ship it. It'd be 66 hours driving if you went straight driving to West Virginia from here.
Hmm. So, are you going to do a shotgun with him, or
I
just riding
volunteered to,
along?
but going across Panama makes me pretty nervous.
Yeah, I hear you.
That's not the only place. There's a few other stops that would make me a little nervous on the way up.
Well, Ecuador, Colombia, let's see, Honduras, Guatemala. It'd be an interesting trip.
Inslee.
It sounds like maybe most of Central America could be a little dicey.
And yeah, yeah.
Well, we decided to do something special tonight because Jason is in Peru, in Cusco, Peru, a place we all know and love. We want to just use this first half of the show to tell a few stories about Cusco and our experiences there. My brother Barton moved down there several years ago. I don't even want to try to remember the exact year. Uh,
2010.
yeah, that's right. He went in 2000, late 2009, something like that. In
Yep.
2010, the work really got going. He spent 10 years there building churches and left in 2020, started doing some stateside missions. But we have all been on campaigns down there, and I've been on a personal trip down to visit family when Barton and his wife and kids were there. And Jason has made more trips than Tim and I because he has been going on a medical campaign. I don't know how many trips it's been, Jason. You had to take a break because of
This,
COVID mess.
yeah, this is trip number 11, 11 years of coming down here.
Oh wow, I didn't know it had been that many. That's a lot.
Yeah. We came down here for the first time in March 2011.
And that's phenomenal. Tim and I predated you. We went in
Yep.
2010.
Yep. October
And that
2010, right?
I was going to ask Tim what month it was because I couldn't remember, but it was in that
uh,
latter half of the
yeah.
year. I just remember that.
I just know they had a sign out at the church that so they're building a new church down here, and it is going to be a really, really cool. I have a lot of pictures to show when I get home, but they had an old banner that said the 1 year anniversary, and it was from October. I think it was October 2011 is what it said. So October 2010 was when they had their inaugural service.
Part of the reason for the trip Tim and I were on was to get the building ready for that
Mhm.
service. So we'll get into that in a moment. But uh, so we know your wife Cassie has been sick. This year's trip didn't start out quite the way you wanted it to, and we
No,
talked.
no,
I'm sorry, I'm getting used to the delay. I think there's a little bit of a delay here.
it is. Yeah, she got sick. Let's see. Sunday night we went to eat. We got back to the room, and let's just say that her body rejected viciously whatever she had consumed. And so she's had, I think she's up to 3 bags of IV fluid since we've been down here. And today was the first day she was able to get back to clinic. And I've got a cool picture of her sitting in clinic today with an IV dripping, seeing patients. She was dispensing glasses to patients. So it's been interesting. We had another guy from Hoover that went down for a couple of days. He got sick, but he was able to get out tonight. So hopefully he'll be able to get back to clinic tomorrow.
So it's not the
So
altitude,
how
it's something she ate.
That's what we think.
so
Or
Jason, I
something.
know that you had some nerves about just the fact that they were starting this back up. It's been a while, supplies, lots of things. So how's the clinic been going so far?
I don't know if it's just that this is like getting a new start to the clinic because it's been since, I mean, we were able to go in 2020. We got back right before they shut everything down. So it's been 3 years since we've been down there. Um, and I don't know if it's just getting back down here and having a reunion with some of the folks that we worked with in the past, or just getting down here and seeing the new church coming up out of the ground. But it's been a really good campaign. It's been a smaller campaign. We've not pushed to see as many patients, which I think is better than what we were doing before. And I am more fired up about the work down here than I was before we got down here. It's been an amazing work. It's been a really good week.
That's
That's
great.
great to hear. Yeah. Well, we're excited that you went back down, and that's really great to hear. I didn't know what you would find. Now
We,
that
we
all
didn't
our
either.
American connections down there are gone, we haven't known much about the work.
Well, they told us they've been averaging around 75 people on Sunday services, and there were probably 80 to 85 Peruvians there Sunday morning. And everything's being run by the brothers at the church in Peru, and it's the Bible class was taught by one of the older members there. The church service was ran by Peru. I mean, it's just been an amazing, amazing event.
That's great. Brings back a lot of
Really good.
memories. Um, we wanted to talk a little bit about past trips and things that have happened. And Tim, he seems to have packed more memories into his one trip than Jason can probably talk about in his 11 trips. Part of that is, Tim, you and I got to go together, and there was a lot of variety in our campaign. It wasn't an
There really was.
evangelistic campaign. It wasn't a medical campaign. It was, how should I put this? It was a work camp campaign. I felt like I
Right.
had committed a
And
crime and had been exiled to some third
Like
world
you were in the
country.
like you were in the gulag.
yeah,
Yes.
and there seems to be something about Drew and me going on mission trips that has that basic theme because I've been on 2 mission trips in my life, one to Cusco and one to Antipovka, Russia. And in both of those, I was basically in a work camp. So um,
Tim, I
in
think it may have something
Cusco,
to do with our lack of ability, lack
well,
of
there's
skills.
really that's right. It's the lack of usable skills is really what it comes down to. And so, that's where, in both of these trips, Drew and I both drew the card of unskilled labor. And so when it came to Cusco, we would arrive at the church building each day, and there would be work to do. And I remember Kevin Dixon like welding this big structure in the building,
Mhm.
and one of the guys from Haleyville, where Drew's dad was at the time, he was building cabinets, and so you sort of stood around, praying that somebody needed you for something that would occupy you, and instead we were drug off to to the unskilled labor detail, which had us doing things like busting rocks. And so
Literally
that's where
busting rocks.
Right. So, one of the stories we like to tell the most is about busting rocks, and that is that one day during our trip we went up into, and I hope I say this right, it was a Quechuan village, probably 30, 45 minutes outside of Cusco, and these folks they lived up. It's all in the mountains, I know, but it was up in a mountainous region, and they had a lot of rain, and their homes were made of mud, and basically their homes had been washed away. And so we went there to try to help do some quick construction work the best we could in a short amount of time. And so the job that Drew and I were assigned, I think we probably did other things during the day, but this one just stuck with me because there was no Quickcrete in Cusco, Peru. And so we were given, Drew, I think it was, there was cement mix, and then there was rock, and then there was sand, and there were three giant piles of each. And the rocks were too big to begin with to be part of the concrete mixture. So we were basically given sledgehammers to bust the rock. And then we were told, take this pile, move it over here, take this pile, move it back over there, basically mix it all together. And we created the mix for the concrete.
And I always wondered what people said. There's an expression about busting rocks in prison. And I always wondered what that meant. I never dreamed it was literally the need to bust big rocks into smaller rocks, but that's really all it is. And
and
that was all we were qualified to do.
Right. Why do I equate Leavenworth with being like the place that you're sent to bust rocks? But, in our case, it was a Quechuan village outside of Cusco where we busted rocks. And Drew always likes to tell the story about basically what that task did to me physically, because we were up at a pretty high elevation and the sun was really beaming down on us. So I'll let him tell sort of that part of the story.
Well, we almost lost Tim. That's the gist of the story. I mean, there would have been a lot of people upset. We almost lost the great one. We were up in that high elevation.
I felt like it was like one of those movies where somebody's out in Death Valley, and they do like the first person shot where he's looking up and the sun's beaming down, and there's waves going across the ground, and he's starting to hallucinate. There was a little bit of that.
Definitely. I looked,
maybe ever so slightly dramatized, but
it's no secret that I can talk a lot, especially when the other person is not talking. And Jason's the same way. We're uncomfortable with silence, right, Jason?
Yeah. Yes.
But we feel like our service to humanity is to fill the silence. Well, I was doing a lot of talking, and I noticed that Tim wasn't saying anything back, and Tim will at least give you a courtesy laugh. And I said something I thought was pretty funny, and he wasn't saying anything. I looked over at him, and he opened his mouth, and this ropey spit formed from the upper lip to the lower lip. It was like a solid strand.
Oh, that's
no moisture in his mouth at all. And all he could say, without a smile on his face or anything, he said, "I'm going to need some water." So we thankfully were on our way. Of course, we had to walk there. We were on our way to something like a restaurant. Like Tim said, this was outside the city. And we sat down, and Tim got, it was like one of those liter bottles. And I know our memory plays tricks on us, but the way I remember it is he turned it up and did not rest until it was empty. I mean, he
just
that thing,
the bottle dry. Yeah.
And then he needed another one. And he drank a couple bottles of water, and it was a fast road down, but it was the fastest recovery from dehydration I've ever seen in my life because it was just 2 bottles of water and we got the old Tim back just like that.
What you don't realize down here how quickly you get dehydrated. So I have been
Right.
drinking almost 3 liters of water a day, and I'm working inside in the clinic. And even then, I feel parched all the time. I think I have bought, we got here Sunday. I bet I've bought over 10 liters of water and probably 5 liters of Gatorade since we got here, just trying to stay hydrated. And man, out there in the sun, I can't imagine slinging a sledgehammer and breaking rocks. Thankfully, I've never experienced that. I have experienced the villages outside of Cusco, though. We went, oh, what year was this? 2014, maybe, or 15. We went to this little tiny village outside of Cusco and set up a clinic. And I mean, we bring a good amount of medical equipment. I mean, there's the eye doctors, the medical doctors, and most of those things require power or at least a way to recharge it. And we got to this village and there was no power. There was like 3 houses, the mayor of the village, of course, the schoolhouse, and maybe the church there had power. We were like, we have to have power or we can't do anything. And I saw this guy put a ladder up against a pole and he literally climbed up there with 2 bare wires, wrapped them around the hot lines on the things, and then rigged up a power outlet directly off the power line. And this is the
Free
craziest
power.
thing. And they were like, just plug your instruments in and they'll be fine. And so we just kind of took a big leap of faith and plugged it in, and it melted one power converter while we were there. I know we ended up using 2 or 3 power converters because everything down here is at 220 to 240 voltage, and you can burn some stuff up pretty quickly. Cassie killed a hair dryer the first year she came down here. That thing was smoking like crazy. But I'll never forget just the thought of watching a guy, like he wasn't in safety gear or anything, just climb up this wooden ladder and loop 2 wires under the power lines and basically steal power so they could, and they wired an outlet for us. I'll
Wow.
never forget it. Um,
Um, we were in
That's a,
one of
that's
those villages.
amazing that it didn't blow your equipment up.
I
Yeah,
was really worried
Pretty.
about if insurance would cover it if it did. Like, how did your equipment get destroyed? Well,
huh.
this guy who's not an electrician wired us an outlet off the power line.
We were up in one of those villages and uh went into one house and the floor moved.
Oh yeah,
And when our eyes adjust to the light, we realized that it was full of guinea pigs.
yeah.
And
Which is
those
which
weren't
is not their
pets.
pets.
No,
No.
it's a delicacy over
That
there.
was a farm.
Yeah, we just
Oh
walked
yeah,
into a guinea pig farm.
yeah. In the villages, most houses had multiple little guinea pigs running around, and if you're hungry, you just go cook the guinea pig. I've seen it. Hey,
I
I've
told.
tried it. It tastes like squirrel.
Do you wring
Did
their
you try
neck
it
or
like on a? No, you put it on a stick, don't you? Eat it
The
like a
one
corn
I ha-
dog.
Hey, the one I had, they brought out the thing. It was belly up, paws, feet, teeth, everything, just cooked to a crisp. And I just tried a few bites off of somebody else's.
do you do it like a lobster? Do you just pitch it in the fire or do you do a
Uh,
mercy killing before you roast it?
I have never seen how they process them, but I have been to restaurants here that are called cuy areas, and they have like the Peruvian version of the lobster tank, which is a cuy cage, and you can pick out your guinea pig, and
Mm-mm.
they'll go cook it for you.
I was going to try
I,
it.
I,
And Tim, I
you
guess you
remember on
told
our
me,
trip? Yeah, Drew, on our trip, I kept telling you, I'll buy it if you'll eat it,
and I was
and
ready to do it.
you know, and so I know you were thinking about doing it really hard, and the reason that there's no surprise to that, is because I'm the biggest weenie when it comes to eating with international travel. It's like my only goal is, I mean, I don't care what I'm eating, but I need it to be as, at least in my mind, as safe as possible, on the trip. So I remember going to the restaurant we were talking about, the Kui, and I don't remember which one it is now. I know Jason's got some restaurants down there that he loves, but I went with, I want to say it was a ham and cheese sandwich. It was just something ridiculously. It probably came off the kids' menu, but that's sort of my mode of operation is, don't go for anything that looks the least bit exotic, because I'm not good at, what happened to Cassie. Basically, just I'd rather bang my head through a wall than have that happen.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm a real wimp when it comes to, and I probably missed out on a lot of good stuff between. Well, not Russia. I don't think I missed any good stuff in Russia, but I know I did in Peru, and I probably did in India as well. By not,
Peruvian food is really
being a
good.
little more risky. Yeah.
If it were not for me walking about 10 to 12,000 steps a day while we're down here, I would come back weighing 300 pounds. I have eaten some type of beef and potatoes or rice every meal, no vegetables. It's been even the lunch, so some of the church members from the church down here are fixing lunch for us every day during the campaign. Today we had, I guess you would call it a Peruvian version of chicken cordon bleu with these creamy potatoes and carrots for lunch. It was amazing. Yesterday we had some kind of a rice and chicken combo that was just, oh, it was good. Oh, the food here is amazing. Unless you get something that doesn't agree with you, and then it puts you out for about 3 days.
Yeah, the infamous burger. That was
Oh no.
That's what got
Yeah,
me on the trip.
that's probably a story that we need to tell. This most of all is a story that begins sort of funny, but it ends very much not funny to me. But the other work detail that Drew and I were sent on was to pour a concrete floor in a lady's house in town that had been unable to get the concrete floor poured for a long time. And so we went out, this was within Cusco. So we weren't like, out in a village. And so this lady, so we worked on pouring the floor, not an awful lot, because there was a work crew there, and it appeared that Drew and I were sent that day to be entertainment for those workers, right? So, because, we'd work, of course the air's thin as all get out. So, everything you do, you're heaving, trying to, get some air in your lungs. And, these guys were, they did this kind of stuff every day, and that's their air that they're dealing with. And so, they're throwing stuff all over the place, and, they're sort of chuckling. We can't do it, thing hardly. So, but we help, them get, the mix in and everything to pour this floor and make some progress. And they told us, I guess after that, this lady who ran a hamburger cart at the local college really appreciated what we did and wanted us to have some of her hamburgers, right? So Drew, I'll let you sort of take it from there.
Well, the hamburgers looked really good and they smelled good. And one of our friends who was there with us, he said, "Don't eat the lettuce, don't eat the tomato and lettuce." And he scraped it off and ate the burger. And I said, "That's crazy. You've already made contact. The lettuce and whatever's on the lettuce and tomato, it's crawled onto the meat, it's crawled onto the bun. You either eat it or you don't." We snapped a picture of me eating it, and there were jokes about this being my last meal. And Tim, it was almost my last meal. That burger
Was your
Yeah,
last meal?
thicker than I've ever been in my life.
you know, I still have that picture, and I look at it, and it's funny but not funny because of that story, right? Because I took that picture, and I'm like, this is going to be the before picture, you know, and sure enough, it was, because
Yeah.
I mean, it was really bad, and it didn't hit right. So that was our last day in Cusco, right? When that that was it for our trip. Maybe
Yeah.
well, it had to be, right. So I think maybe we had already gone to Machu Picchu, maybe the day before that. I think maybe we went to Machu Picchu in the middle of that week rather than at the end of the week.
Right. Yeah. I
We
ate
had
the burger
a
on the
day
last
off and
day,
took that,
and then
right.
we
And
went
then
down
we
to
left. Yeah, we
Lima.
left there and went to um, Lima, right, and spent
Mhm.
the night.
Yeah, and
And
I woke
so,
up that morning sick.
oh
Probably
yeah, so
probably with something like what Cassie's got, but I was
yeah,
getting
Yeah,
on a
it,
plane, which is not a
yeah.
good place to lose control of your bowels.
and
No,
you had picked up. I mean, you picked up some kind of serious bug. I mean, it was we weren't dealing with just, you know, garden variety food poisoning, because
No.
so Drew woke, you know, we flew to Lima, and we spent the night, and like early in the next morning we had to get to the airport. So, you know, of course, we went from whatever it is, right, 9 or 10,000 feet elevation in Cusco, and I remember I struggled breathing the whole time I was there. Right, I remember putting like all of my clothes behind me on my bed and propping my pillow up against the wall, so that, and that's the way I slept every night. It was like the first night I got there, I laid down in the bed and I popped back up in 10 seconds, went downstairs, stayed up until I was just falling down asleep. And then, you know, I figured out that I just needed to prop up. That was the only way I was going to, you know, be able to sleep. And
You
so
had to
that's what I
sleep
did
like the
all week.
Elephant Man.
Absolutely. So, you know, we got back to Lima, and Drew wakes up and he's like, "Are you guys cold? Did you, I didn't sleep well at all. Did y'all sleep well?" And I'm like, "Dude, we are back at sea level. I breathed air for the first time in a week, and I slept like a baby." And that should have been the first signal. We didn't really know exactly what was going on at that point, but it was the beginning of some tough times.
Yeah.
there is
Old Tim carries
there
the
is a
Imodium everywhere he goes.
yeah, there is a very strange color of paleness that sets in about about 5 hours after you start feeling the first symptoms, and it's
Mm.
like watching The Walking Dead, like seeing people just slowly start to. You know, I came back from this campaign one time with a friend we'd like to refer to as a parasite, and I lost like 25, 30 pounds in 2 weeks until the medicine finally killed whatever it was that was trying to kill me. It was awful.
Mm.
And Tim,
Yeah.
I hate to be this person, but I have to correct you.
Yeah.
Cusco in the valley sits at about 11,200 feet above sea level. So it's up
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I'm
And
on the
so we think
seventh
about,
floor of this building.
you know, we think about in the U.S., you know, Denver's the mile high city. We're talking 2 miles high, right? And so,
Oh yeah.
you know, and maybe a little bit of change. And so, I mean, that just gives you an idea of, well, you know, what the elevation's really like. So it's some serious thin air. And
Well,
so,
it's
you know,
Shiha times
when
9.
that's right. That's right. And so, you know, when we got on the plane to come home from Lima, right? So we've got a long way to go, right? We've got Lima to, I think, you know, to Miami to Atlanta. And so, you know, that's a serious trip. That's several
Yeah.
hours
Oh, it's
we're dealing with
awful.
there.
Yeah.
And so we get in the plane, and that's when, I don't know, Drew, if before that you had really figured out that it was going to be bad, but I remember you sitting next to me and just sort of rocking, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, something is wrong here. And this was literally, we were like sitting in the plane before it took off from Lima, and Drew's doing this, and I'm thinking, I don't know if he's going to get home. It was bad.
You
And
got me
so,
there though, Tim. You got me home.
we got some, right, whatever was in my backpack, we put inside Drew, and we got
I
him
feel
to
like he
Miami.
was propping me up, like in the airport, getting on the plane. He was just basically holding me together
It
through
was like
that.
So we
Weekend at
got off.
Bernie's.
It was some of that, right? So we're trying to coach him through it, right? And just knowing he's just dying. And so he got off the plane in Miami. We had to get off and switch planes or whatever. And so it was sort of like he got a second wind in Miami. And I don't know if it was just the fact that we were able to get off the plane. And I
Oh,
thought,
that's definitely
maybe he's going to be all right. It's passing or whatever. And then we got back on the plane, and it was, he was in rough shape. And by the time I passed him to Julie in Atlanta, oh, he was just a mess. It was. Julie was there, right? Do I remember that correctly? I think Julie and Millie both were there.
I believe so. Yes.
Hey, it's a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
But then tell the rest of you came home, right? And then it really leveled.
It was a 6-week ordeal, but some of that was due to the doctor that I went to. He didn't take it very seriously. He called it traveler's diarrhea. I'm going to tell you something. I don't know what I should tell you on this podcast. I've had diarrhea, and that, my friend, was not diarrhea.
No, there is a big difference between travelers and parasitic. Parasitic never stops.
So I couldn't get anybody to take me seriously. And so I didn't, Jason, you talked about losing 20, 30 pounds. I don't think I lost that much. I lost some weight, but it was
Drew,
just
you've never had that much weight to lose.
That's right.
Me, it was like a nice diet plan. It's a horrible way to do it, but at least I was slimming down.
It's effective. You just don't recommend it, right?
Hey, that is the joy of traveling with a full medical team. You get sick, we have a pharmacy here with us. There is plenty of medications, and they will do it like they're like, does Cassie need Phenergan, Zofran? What do we need? Do we need to give IV Phenergan? I mean, that is the joy of
basically
traveling
like traveling with Tim. Tim had quite a briefcase of drugs. I'm going to tell you.
I did.
Drugs and Snickers bars.
Oh, you better believe it. So, Jason, let me ask you a question right quick, and I don't know if we're hitting close to where we need to stop.
We are. We got 2 minutes before they cut us off.
All right, Jason. So, real quick. So, I remember flying down. You flew like in through the Andes or whatever, and and I remember that being like, our plane was doing some aerobics. So is that normal since you've done it a whole bunch of times?
Oh yeah, man. When they come through the mountains, they go and they make this huge banking turn to the left to come around to the airport, and it is an abrupt stop. Now, I will admit, I've made that trip so many times that I was sound asleep until somebody woke me up and told me we were in Cusco this year. I was out. So, but hey, it's the same thing when they take off because there's mountains surrounding the airport. The airport's in the valley. When they take off, it's nose up and give it all the gas you got because it is straight up in the air.
Short runway. It's made some of those documentary shows, most dangerous airstrips in the world or shortest airstrips in the world. It's on that top 10 list.
Well, and it's about as bumpy as a gravel road when you land down here too.
We're back and glad that we're able to do this week with Jason in Peru. It was fun catching up, and we did not tell all the Peru stories. I don't feel like we gave Jason enough time to talk about his 11 trips. Tim and I spent most of the time
not. How did we
trip.
dominate with How did we dominate with one? And I would like to apologize for segment one. So
There is no
We'll
need
put
to
that
apologize, gentlemen.
we'll put that on the shelf for another day, right?
Yes,
Hey,
we got to get to our
I
passage.
I promise we'll have other opportunities to tell funny stories from Peru.
Yes. Yeah, we got to leave a little time for our passage. That's the name of the podcast, after all. And our passage this week comes from an author that I really enjoy reading, Haruki Murakami, the Japanese author. You guys all know Haruki Murakami, right?
Oh yeah.
Big fan.
Yes, um, I have heard of him today, actually,
Oh, you heard of him
or
today?
yesterday. Yesterday, whenever we
Oh,
we
when I
started
sent the
talking
quote
about
out,
this.
I thought
Yeah,
maybe somebody you were on the trip with was talking about him. No.
I consider myself well read, but I have to say I don't know who he is.
Well, I encourage you to try one of his novels sometime if you're in the mood for that. Like I said, he's a Japanese author, and the reason I got into him is because when I started trying to learn how to write fiction, I wanted to write some dream sequences and some weird stuff like that. And, you learn from reading good authors. And I always heard that he was really good at surrealism and magical realism and things like that. So I picked up one of his books and I found that they could be pretty philosophical at times. And so I've collected quotes here and there as I've read through some of his books, and he has some pretty good thoughts. And this week's passage is no exception. I'll go ahead and read it. I think it'll give us a lot to talk about. The quote is this: "Whatever it is you're seeking won't come in the form you're expecting." I think that's going to hit a lot of people because we're all seeking something, or we should be. I guess there is the possibility that somebody out there is listening who has really given up on desire, ambition, vision, seeking something. Maybe they're at a stage in their life where they don't really feel that, and that can be a really tough time. And I think it's important to start out with, we need to seek. Jesus, one of his most famous statements is, "Seek and you will find." Well, you're not going to find anything if you're not seeking. But then there's a little wrinkle in it, and I think it's true what Murakami says. Go ahead and seek, but whatever it is you're seeking, you may find it, but it may not come in the form you're expecting. In fact, I think that's almost a guarantee that it's not going to come the way you expect it. What do you guys
Yeah,
think?
I think there's, when you shared this passage with us, immediately my mind went to prayer and how prayers are answered, and I'm sure there's a lot of different ways we can talk about this passage, but that one struck me, and I know that we've probably all had situations where our prayers we talk about the kinds of answers we receive to prayers, that God hears and answers our prayers. That's a promise from Scripture. And sometimes we get a yes, and sometimes we get a no, and sometimes we get a not right now. But we always, we can trust that we're always given an answer. But there's when we say that, there's really a lot of blurry lines between yeses and nos, in terms of the ways that some of those answers come back. And sometimes it's yes, but the yes is not exactly, what we were thinking it would be. And so I think that these words spoke to me, at least in that way, just that, how God will answer our prayers. And, most of all, he knows how to answer them better than we know how to ask. But the answers, sometimes maybe we think that our answer is a no because we're looking for exactly, to the detail of what we're asking God for. And, so it may be a yes, but we don't really recognize it that way because we're not thinking open-mindedly enough that what we're asking for may come back in a different form.
Yeah, that's
I think
great. I was thinking about similar things.
I think too, a lot of times we should be very thankful that we do not get the things we seek in the way we expect them. I think God's providence protects us a lot of times from ourselves and what we're seeking, if that makes sense. I think sometimes in our humanity, we think we know what we need. We start seeking things that we think that they need. And God has this grand vision of what our life looks like. He knows our future. He knows our past. He knows our present. And sometimes when we ask for things, he gives us things in a different way than what we expect because he knows that's what we need at that moment. I don't think it's a miraculous thing. I think he uses his providence and I think he uses the people around us and the environment. But I think he protects us from ourselves so often because sometimes we don't really know what exactly we need. We know we're seeking something. And I think that's where a lot of it comes in is that God is protecting us a lot of times from ourselves. And I think that ties into what you were saying with your prayer, Tim, about the prayers, Tim.
Yeah, definitely. Do you guys ever watch The Twilight Zone?
It has been a very long
Not,
time.
not a lot. I've watched it before, but yeah, not in a long
So
time.
this reminded me of a Twilight Zone episode. So bear with me a little bit. Tim, you were talking about waiting for answered prayer and not realizing that you didn't say it exactly this way, but not realizing that your prayers may be answered. You just don't recognize the answer because it's different from your expectation. During that waiting time, what we may need could be right under our nose, and we just don't see
Right.
it at the time. We don't understand it at the time. There's this episode of The Twilight Zone called What You Need. I think that's the name of it. If you got a Paramount Plus app, and this is our advertising for the week, you can find Twilight Zone and Paramount Plus. If you're listening, you can send us the money. Now we've done the ad, but in this episode, there's this little old man. He's like a peddler, and he's got a suitcase full of his wares that he's selling. But he's not really selling things to people. He's just going up to them in a diner, for example, and telling them, handing them something and saying it's what you need. So he hands this girl this spot remover that removes spots from clothing. She's like, "What's this?" He said, "It's what you need." And then there's this washed up baseball player who wants to get back into pitching, but his arm is ruined. And he hands him a bus ticket to Scranton, Pennsylvania. And the guy's like, "What's this for?" He says, "It's what you need." And, the phone rings. The baseball player answers the phone. It's somebody in Scranton wanting him to come pitch. He gets a new lease on life. He needs that bus ticket to Scranton, and he spills something on his shirt. Uh, he needs to go for this interview, but the girl has the spot remover, and she's real lonely. So they get together, and it's just all about fate and how things pop up in life that we turn out finding to be very useful. There's this evil guy that wants to take advantage of the whole thing, and the little peddler gives him a pair of slick shoes. And at the end of it, the guy slips and falls in front of a car and dies in a car accident. So it had this great little twist at the end. But the whole thing about we have things now in our possession that the Lord may have put in our lives. Some of these things may be annoying to us, some of them may cause suffering, but they may be the very things we need to give us what will bring joy and happiness and peace and freedom in the future. We just can't see it. I think that's a very profound idea.
So
Yeah, that really is.
I thought of a really good biblical example, and I'm sleepy and I'm oxygen deprived, so I can't think of the guy's name. Who was the captain of the King's Guard that developed leprosy? You just preached a sermon on him not long ago.
Naaman.
Um, Naaman, thank you. So this quote reminded me of Naaman. He goes to, it was Elijah, correct? Elijah,
Yeah.
Elijah, the first one, Elijah,
Elisha.
Elisha. So
Yes.
he goes and he expects to be healed of his leprosy. He's been told that he could be healed by his leprosy, and he goes. And you remember Elisha just sends his servant out and says, "Hey, go dip in the Jordan 7 times." And Naaman throws this little temper tantrum, right? Because it wasn't what he was expecting. In
Hmm.
fact, he says to his own servants, "I thought he would come out and call down, some magical thing and poof, it would be healed. And here he is wanting me to go dip in the dirty Jordan River." And talk about a guy that was seeking something, or and his expectations were not met in the way he thought they were. I mean, that
Yeah.
how often do we, I mean, we think of that story and we think how ridiculous, but how often are we that person um that is seeking something but have really unreal expectations about what we're seeking to? I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's a
That
great
story is
example.
that was the first thing that popped in my head when we were passing that quote around. I don't remember what day it was. I'm not even real sure what day today is. Is it Wednesday?
I believe so. I only know that because we're recording this podcast.
Yeah.
My whole week is either before the recording of the podcast or after the recording of the podcast.
Totally understand.
I'll get a little personal here and share something. Um, Tim, you know a little about this. Uh, when my wife and I were going through infertility, we were just, really bewildered by that whole experience because we always thought it was the Lord's will for us to be parents, and the natural way to do that was not working out for us. And we went to doctors and went through surgeries and had all these empty promises from professionals that didn't pan out. And we wondered, where in the world is this going? And, all along, I believe the Lord had our two children in store for us. And the very thing that was a hindrance and causing suffering for us was actually helping lead us to adopting these beautiful kids that I believe 100% we were meant to raise. And I'm glad we went through that now. We received what we sought. We wanted children, but we didn't get it in the way that we expected. And I'm sure you guys could too. I could throw out many, many examples of how life has worked out that way. And that's the advantage of age. When you get a little older, you can look back in hindsight and see that Romans 8:28 is true, that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are the called according to his purpose. There's a lot of suffering involved, but even the suffering can work toward blessings in God's way.
Yeah, and Drew, I wasn't going to let this podcast get by without basically saying a lot of the same things and the same journey, right? Because we took a lot of that same journey, together, and I as I think back on it, and Millie and I talk about this a lot, and we've talked about it a lot through Jonathan's life, is that um, those were some really tough times. We did off and on, 9 years of um, fertility treatments of all kinds of variations, and it was a whole lot tougher on Millie than it was on me. But emotionally and psychologically, it was very difficult on both of us. And when we look back at that, and as we even shifted out of that and moved toward adopting Jonathan, one of the things is that God really, he blessed us in in the strangest way from our perspective, because he prepared us to receive that gift and to we're not perfect parents, but we don't take for granted the gift that we were given, because the journey was so difficult to get there. And so, sometimes you get even more than you ask for. And just like you, we had no idea the journey that we would, where that journey would end up when we started it, but it prepared us both through time and, a lot of, a lot of preparation, but and a lot of discussion and prayer and getting ready to be parents, but just to appreciate the gift in what I feel like sort of a unique way when it got here. And so that's a gift, right? I mean, that in its own sense, to when you're prepared to receive the gift in a particular way, because maybe it's been difficult and hard to get there. And so, you feel it's a treasure when you finally get it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
tell you, go ahead, Drew.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, when I read this quote, one of the things I've always struggled with in my life is trying to find a sense of peace and happiness and purpose in life. It's just been, it's been I've dealt with a lot of self-inflicted issues, a lot of mental issues. I mean, just a lot of anxiety and stress. And at 44 years of age, I'm actually starting to find some level of inner peace, some level of happiness. And I can assure you it has come into my life in a way that was not expected in any shape, form, or fashion. And I've gone through a lot of the testing by fire, and mostly of my own doing and the poor decisions. But God has found a way to take the mess of my life and start to show me some peace and happiness. And it was definitely not in the way I was expecting it to be, but it's something I've sought since I was a child. And it's an amazing thing. It's a lot of like what y'all were talking about with your adoptions. I do believe in the providence of God and that He will bless us and answer our prayers. And so often it's not in the way we expect it to be. And sometimes it takes going through a lot of fire and trial and testing to get to that point. But it's really cool when you're starting to get older and you're looking back on it and you see, hey, I was expecting this in a different way, but wow, God is really starting to show me something now.
What you're saying, Jason, makes me wonder if we can turn this around and get a little more wisdom from it, looking at the converse. Is it true that whatever it is you're fearing won't be as scary as you imagine it will be? Um, Instead of
Yeah,
what you're seeking, what you're fearing will not be as
yeah,
bad as what you're imagining it will be.
yeah. Well, we talked a few podcasts ago about how fear, I think, is one of the limiting factors in us enjoying life, is our fear of what other people think or failure or whatever. And I think that impacts what we seek and it impacts what we expect. And I think our fear is always greater than the reality of of the situation.
Yeah. We had a lesson on lying tonight at church, and the speaker was saying, why do we lie? It's because of fear. And
Absolutely.
that was a really good point that he made from the life of Abraham. Abraham lied about his wife being his sister because he was afraid of what the people might do to him, when he should have trusted that God would take care of him through that whole thing.
Well, and so much of it comes back to we try to be in control. We try
Yeah.
to solve everything by ourselves, and we don't trust in God. We don't put that faith in him that he asks us to put in him. And that's our own doing.
Yeah, it's hard, but I hope somebody's listening and hearing us. It'd be very fulfilling to me, and I'm sure it would be to you guys, to know that somebody's listening to this and going through a really difficult, confusing time and decides to trust God and have a little faith and give themselves permission to have hope that things will get better in some unimaginable way they can't possibly conceive of at the moment. And that the very thorn in their flesh right now could be what God is using to show them the greatest grace. If we could reach somebody with that, that would make this whole thing worth it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Drew, just to maybe take us in a little bit of a different direction for a minute, you mentioned early on, sort of this whole idea of seeking, and that, that maybe in your life we get to the point where we sort of give up sometimes, and maybe we're not really out there seeking anything. And I think that's an interesting point to make in relation to this. We sort of spun this around in a couple of different directions, but I think it's, one of the things, and we, just beginning to get older, you start thinking, well, for instance, I think, well, my work career is, it has a few more years, but it sort of, I've written that tale. It's not gonna, necessarily change very much from here to the finish line. And you start thinking about, what's gonna be the meaning of my life from here on out, right? And so, a lot of it is about, what we're doing at church, and about, raising a family and having a happy home, and things. But just, I think it's important for us to continue seeking in all kinds of different ways, right? I don't think it's, ever too late to start, seeking new things, right? To put yourself out there and try something new. It doesn't matter if you're 40 or 50 or 60 or 70. I think it's important for us to keep seeking, because I don't want to just sort of quit and die. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to have a life of seeking as long as I'm here in some way, right? Continue growing and learning, and getting answers to things, and in all kinds of different forms, because I think that makes life interesting.
Yeah, you may, as we get older, we can't seek the same things we did when we were younger. And
That's right.
got to keep moving forward, keep looking at the doors in front of us. There's always an opportunity, there's always a next step, there's always something good that you can do. And it may not be what you wish you could do, but you've got to put that out of your mind and look at what's in your control, what's around you. And I think that's Tim, I think that's really one of the keys to longevity. I
Yeah.
find that people who live long lives are able to hold on to their sense of purpose and meaning past retirement. They don't
Right.
make their whole life about their job.
No, I think you're exactly right. And I think that's what's important is, sort of figure out what you're going to do when you grow up, and just, always have something that is is challenging you in some way. And um so I think that's the kind of thing that makes you, look forward to maybe having time outside of a job at some point. We we've already plotted out that we're going to spend a lot of time, like, sitting around a table when this when the podcast goes off, still doing this kind of stuff. So, I've got a big chunk of my retirement time, the pie chart devoted to that.
Good.
Hanging out in a restaurant somewhere.
Absolutely.
So they kick us out, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. And so are our fans who are out there listening. They need new content. We have to keep
that's
this
right. We got
going.
to still have fresh stuff to talk about.
That's
I
right.
don't think the three of us will run out of things to talk about.
Haven't yet.
We haven't in 23 years.
Maybe we should run out for tonight, though, because I think our time's about up. Let me remind everybody as we're wrapping this thing up that we do have an Instagram account and we need followers. So if you haven't done it yet, go on there, and with Instagram, it's a follow, correct? We follow, we
I have
don't
no
friend,
clue.
we don't tweet or
Sounds
X
good.
or thread. Instagram is a follow. So find us on there. Passages_podcast is the handle, and follow us. And that way you can share some of the posts and let other people know about what's going on. Jason, I'm glad you made this work. I was afraid you weren't going to be able to join us this week. Tim and I would have carried on, but it's good to have the
Oh,
three
But it's awesome
together
that
when we can.
we'll always have this one in the archives as the international podcast. So
Oh yeah.
very exciting.
And I get no credit for making this work, Drew. You did all the work in making this come together. I just sat down in the bed and pulled up my tablet and logged in. So
I'm
thanks for
looking
putting
at
in
you
the
right
effort to
now, and
figure
I'm
it
not
out.
sure sat down is the right verb. It looks like you're
No,
lying.
I am not far from sleep.
Well, I know y'all are working
Hey,
hard.
just one thing before we run out of time, and that is that it's getting exciting. A lot of people are stopping us and saying that they're listening, and so that's within our little circle, right? But
Yeah.
but we appreciate everybody that's out there listening and maybe telling somebody about it. It's sort of fun that we were excited when we got our first listener or two, and I think we're at least in double digits, right? I mean, we're cooking here.
Yeah, we're well into double digits. I will not reveal the analytics on the air. When we finish, I'll tell y'all what I think it's at right now. But I'm getting the same thing. People are saying they're enjoying it,
Yeah.
and they're spreading the word, and that is exciting because we really just wanted an excuse to talk for an hour on Wednesday
Oh yeah.
nights.
Hey, and
That's right.
if you got a quote you want us to dissect and you don't mind us, talking and giving our opinions on it, throw it at us. We'd love to hear it.
One of my friends told me tonight that she was going to give me a list because she knows I love lists so much. So I'm waiting on
Good.
that, and that
That's great.
may be one of mine for a future podcast.
Yeah, we need material to keep this thing going. So work on that, folks. We need lists. We need rock news. We need fast food segment items, and most of all, we need past.
Oh, and I can't stop talking, but I heard an update on our fast food, so stay tuned next week for an update. There will be a fast food segment next week.
Well, since you're doing that, I'm just going to say right now, because it's not a full segment and we need to cap it off, from last week's rock news, Don Henley, his prosecutors have just dropped the case.
I saw that.
I don't think it's
Oh,
a good
wow.
thing, Jason. You gave a thumbs up, but I
Wait,
don't
the
think he got
prosecutors, he dropped the case?
he dropped the case. He's the prosecution, right?
Oh, I thought the other side dropped the case.
No, so he does not have
No.
the lyrics.
So
So
he's just going to let them have it?
I don't know. We'll have to stay tuned, and we will. I promise this to our audience. We will follow the Don Henley lyric case to its end, and we will use
Which
our
means stay
platform to
tuned
get
next.
justice for for Eagles. We will get justice for Eagles.
That's right, not the Eagles. Stay tuned next week, and we get to hear the great sound effects for rock news again. I can't wait.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited about rock news.
Right. More to come. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. That's it for now. Stay tuned till next week.